Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our new Accomplices for Justice Weekly, episode 2. And uh, Pastor Hughes and I have been engaging in this question about liberalism. And we got started on this last week when we began to talk about DEI and its uh, less than stunning victories for making society better. How's that for and today we're going to start in an interesting place. We're going to start with an Israeli poet, uh, Yehuda Amichai, who is one of my favorite poets, um, and specifically his classic poem, "The Place Where We Are Right." From the place where we are right, flowers will never grow in the spring. The place where we are right is hard and trampled like a courtyard. But doubts and loves dig up the world like a mole, like a plow, and a whisper will be heard in the place where the ruined house once stood. From the place where we are right.
Mm,
And we are so addicted to being right.
yes, we are.
As
We are.
opposed to righteous, Pastor Hughes. What do you have to say about that?
I say a lot about this. I preach this often. Uh, the desire to be right instead of being righteous. And the question always is always posed to me, well, what does it mean to be righteous? And I say, well, righteousness, if you study scripture as a Christian, righteousness is it's doing what is right. There's doing what is right, and then there's being right. These are different, okay? I can be right, but what am I going to do about my rightness is where righteousness comes from. Is it I want to use an example, but I don't want to go down a rabbit hole.
That's okay. We can recover.
Yeah. If I am right about if I think that every person in America deserves to have universal health care, every tax-paying person deserves to have universal health care. That's right, at least as I see it, and as most people would see it. That's right. But that doesn't mean I then go and criticize and berate and harass and shut down people who disagree with that. That's not being righteous. Being righteous is holding one's own belief, holding one's own understanding, but also being in tension with other people's understanding if they oppose. That's righteous because now we're in a conversation as opposed to a war, a confrontation.
So, so here's, I think, maybe a way of approaching this. Uh, your example opens up this question, right? And one of the things we're looking at is why did Democrats lose so badly in 2024?
Mm,
And a lot of this is on this, why do people calling themselves liberals behave so illiberally? And
mm,
this policy issue is a great one. The policy is universal health care, but that's a policy, not a value,
right.
right? Timothy Snyder has been asking us to think in the fifth dimension, the dimension
Mm,
of values, which where creativity happens.
hmm.
So the value is, and is everybody deserves medical care,
Right.
good medical care, preventive care,
Hmm.
timely care. We need a better philosophy of taking care of one another, and
Right.
we need to apply it better.
Right.
This every person for themselves doesn't work because we don't get healthy by ourselves.
Right.
As a child, I need good pediatrics.
Hmm.
Despite we are learning over again that that includes vaccinations.
Yep.
As as a
And free
growing
lunch.
as a growing young adult, I need good advice on diet and continued preventive care. I need somebody to help me find good food and
Mm,
prepare it because I don't know how to do it from the get-go.
right.
I need I need people around me to help secure good food sources and healthy air and water.
Mm,
I need to have not I need to not be drinking water out of lead pipes.
Yeah, that
And
leads.
and this is these are outcomes based on the fundamental value that, and let's call it maybe a liberal value, but maybe that's too triggering for too many people. Let's call it a basic compassionate value that every person deserves living a healthy life.
Hmm.
Now, I'm going to do some stupid stuff that's going to hurt my healthy life that the rest of the society doesn't need to pay for.
Right,
If if I'm a smoker, then maybe society is going to say, okay, we'll help you stop smoking. But
right.
once we've done that for a while, if you continue, that's on you.
It's on you.
If I am a reckless driver, then me having automobile insurance is only going to cover me so far,
Hmm.
right? Because insurance is another communal way of covering things. We pay for it, but we pay for it communally. And the worse kind of
Right,
driver I am, the more insurance I have to pay. So
right,
there's this give and take. The thing, I don't deserve to be a driver. I have to earn that.
right.
I do, however, deserve the opportunity to live a healthy life.
That's right.
And if that's something we can agree about, and again, that's a big if,
Yeah,
then how we go about it needs to be much more interesting and nuanced than the binary you're either for universal health care or against it.
yeah, yeah.
Because the subsequent implications of being for universal health care means I'm against all my friends who work in health insurance having jobs.
That's right. That's the polarizing effect that is just tearing us apart. Everything is polarized. Something that Dave Chappelle said, it's okay to have an opinion, but when that opinion tears you away from your neighbor, then that's bad. I mean, we should be in a position, we should be at a place where we can disagree about something, but that disagreement should not drive a wedge between us, right? We've talked about this a lot. We've talked about politics with a soul, okay?
Mm.
Policy with a soul. Um, and I think this example of universal health care is another example of how our current healthcare system has no soul. It has no soul. Our current economic system has no soul, right? To say that a human being has a right to adequate health care, right? To say that should be a right, that every human being should have access to adequate health care, is not to negate anybody else. It's just a statement of fact.
Well,
And so so
no, no,
so
no.
so,
It's a statement of values.
it's just
Let's,
okay, statement of value, but
and
it's
it's a statement of values that corresponds with another value that we have to balance, right?
right,
Everybody deserves the opportunity to earn a living.
right. But the thing is, the right response to that, if you disagree, the right response is, how do you approach that value then? Right?
Correct, because
How do you
values
approach that value? How,
because the
okay,
whole idea of values in the fifth dimension is we we can have multiples going on at the same time.
that's right.
We can juggle them. We can switch back and forth. We can say right now I'm holding this one as the highest value, but in the
Right.
next conversation I have to hold another one.
That's right. John Stewart, uh, who I love John Stewart, he was interviewing a Second Amendment, a person who was a proponent of the Second Amendment, and a- he kept trying to get the guy to admit that that his value was on the wrong thing. He wasn't saying that his value was wrong. He was just saying that perhaps our values should be shifted. This man was so caught up in his value of the Second Amendment and the right to bear arms and to carry weapons. And John Stewart was saying, and yet, where's your value for the children? Because according to the statistics, more children are killed by gun violence than anything, than the measles, mumps, flu,
Anything.
SIDS, anything. It's the number one killer of children in America, and this is guns. And he said half of those deaths are accidents. You know what I mean? Like literally accidents. He got into the
Right,
cabinet.
which means how are you upholding the value of freedom to bear arms with the other value of responsible gun ownership?
Exactly. And so the guy, and I can't think of the man's name. And so I found it interesting that his pushback had nothing to do with valuing the children. It was all about defending, right? And this is exactly what Democrats are doing now. Instead of offering an alternative that demonstrates care for that value or attention to that value, you're just opposing it.
So this was his interview with Oklahoma State Senator Nathan Dam.
I can only speculate. I saw it on social media and I didn't have any context, but it was
Yes.
just a back and forth. And the question was, so this is what John Stewart asked the guy. He said, so, and maybe I shouldn't say it the way he said it. I'll paraphrase. He said, so what you're saying is this guy values the right to bear arms over the deaths of children. That's your value. And the guy said, well, no, not quite. He said, no, that's what you're saying. Because if I'm telling you, he's not a proponent of taking away guns. He's a proponent of regulating them
So
so that we
here's
can,
the quote I think that you're looking for. So
well,
this is
yeah.
John Stewart saying, "What you're telling me is you don't mind infringing free speech to protect children from this amorphous thing that you think of,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
meaning drag shows.
Yeah, the Drax.
But when it comes to children that have died, you don't give a flying F to
Yeah,
stop that because that shall not be infringed."
right.
And he replied, "That's your opinion.
Ah,
The First Amendment is treated differently than the Second Amendment."
ah. And there it is. And there it is. Right instead of being righteous. You see? Can
Right.
we not just be righteous about this thing?
And yes, that is the case.
Thank you
So,
for pulling that up.
hey,
Yeah.
the one of the problems with Tim Snyder's arguments that we talk about is he decides that our our easy access to devices is one of the fundamental evils of society. And I think it's when somebody who I really respect strays into this illiberalism question.
Yeah. Yeah.
He points out that some of the most important and influential Silicon Valley people severely restrict their children's access to smartphones,
Yes, he does.
as therefore evidence that all of us should severely restrict everyone's access to smartphones,
Yeah, we
as
should.
opposed to figuring out how are we going to better use this tool.
Why not fix what we have access to, right?
Because stopping people from accessing it, stopping people from talking about things that we disagree with, stopping people from disagreeing with us or preventing us from going into
Right.
conversations with people with whom we disagree,
Right.
that's not helping.
Not helpful at all. And why
So,
can't we sit down and have the real conversation that we're
okay, so
just
let's dream big here. Uh, you and I managed to gather together another small group of people on Tuesday evening, right? Three of whom we'd never met before in person. Well, we or only tangentially knew before in person, and a bunch more, five or six more online.
Mhm.
And we're desperately trying to have a discussion that doesn't um, litmus test people out of the conversation,
Mhm.
right? So you're going to be devoted to sitting down and having a beer with a conservative who nonetheless says, "How can you drink with me? I'm a conservative." And I'm devoted to sitting down with, an anti-Zionist Jewish person, even though we're going to have some pretty fundamental disagreements.
Right.
One of our next upcoming conversations, should he agree to it, is with Ahmed, who works for Buffalo Immigration Leadership Team, who is a
Oh, wow.
Saudi Arabian American, a Saudi
Mm.
American, an immigrant, and he and I have managed to find more common ground on Israel Palestine than you would imagine.
That's going to be interesting.
And and it's really fascinating because of course he's coming at it from a dimension that none of us would have predicted, no, who don't actually know him well,
Mm,
right? So, and the unpredictability of our opinions is a source of delight. Going back to
right.
the Tim Snyder pro point, that unpredictability is the source. So here's our question. We're beginning to gather people who are willing to step into this ever vaster common ground between the fortified positions of left and right,
Hmm. Hmm.
who have retreated behind walls of intolerance. I cannot tolerate your opinion, therefore you're not with me.
Right.
What do we do? What's the what how are we going to change this? And we need to change this right now.
Mm,
We need to help those, be they in the Democratic Party or in the Republican Party, come up with a better program in the middle. One that says, we want to make things better, but we don't have the answer until we talk with the people who are in need of the solution.
yeah. Yeah. That's but and that's tough. It's so much harder to do that work than it is to cut off the conversation. It's so much easier for us to say, well, you disagree with me and we're never going to get through this. So, you know what? Retreat to your corner. That's easier than sitting down than as a collective saying we screwed this up, but we have to fix it. It's so much harder to go to our enemy or our opposition and say, I we need your help to do this. That's hard. You ever seen that movie Remember the Titans with Denzel
Sure.
Washington?
Yeah.
Real quick, football, first black coach, all integrated school. Denzel's character is the head coach. The former head coach of the football team is the white guy who's now on the defensive line. And they're in this game and they're totally acting autonomous from each other. And they're getting spanked.
They're getting
And
their butts kicked.
they're getting their butts kicked. And finally, the defensive coordinator says, "You know what? Maybe I am not doing this right. Maybe you can help me." And they
Mhm.
come together, and in mid game, they turn it around. They
Right.
needed each other. They still disagree with each other. They still had oppositions. They still had different ways of approaching the game, but they realized that the only way they're going to win a game is if that they work together. And they put aside some of those barriers and learn to work together with each other. And that's the same thing that we have to do. And that's hard.
Well,
Unfortunately,
but
it might take us losing a couple of games.
there are a number of ways into this though. One of them is uh, there's a there's a design theory in organizational development called appreciative inquiry,
Mm,
right? And this is all in was vogue for a while about how we do,
appreciative inquiry.
yeah,
Hmm.
how we do team building, right? So instead of like doing a SWOT analysis, right? Strengths, weaknesses,
Hmm.
opportunities, threats, we look at challenges and opportunities. We
Mm.
don't, we don't, we want to focus on what works. So
Hmm.
one of one of the challenges we're all facing now is when we make the federal government into a villain, what we've done is we've made everybody who works for the federal government into a potential enemy.
That's right.
And the federal government is just us. It's filled with people really trying to do good jobs.
Hmm.
It is not filled with people who are getting rich off of tax money.
Right.
That, who are doing nothing and sitting and pushing papers and,
That's right. That's right. For the
taking
most
long
part.
lunches.
Right.
That's not, so we need to start with a non-adversarial approach, a constructive approach, a collaborative approach to the
Hmm.
people with whom we need to work. And we need to say, hey, you know what the federal government has done? The federal government means that many of us, if not all of us, actually drink clean water.
Mm.
It it took a situation where the Cuyahoga River in Cleveland was on effing fire in the early
Mm,
70s. The
mm,
river was burning and turned it around, and Lake Erie is now clean water.
mm-hmm.
And Cleveland and Buffalo have clean water sources in Lake
Right.
Erie. And
Right.
now the Great Lakes are the envy of the world in terms of freshwater sources. That was done by the federal government. It was done by
Yeah.
Richard Nixon.
Yeah. Yeah. And unfortunately, it took the river being burning for them to realize that something needed to be done.
Well, but then we looked at air and air pollution. And then we looked at lead in gasoline
Right.
and in paint. And we
That's right.
saw all these ways that we might be able to live better together.
Yeah.
Now, we've gone too far. Ezra Klein recently has come out with a book, and his sample issue is high-speed rail in California.
Mm,
So Jerry Brown, Governor Brown, tried to bring high-speed rail to California the first time he was governor in the
mm-hmm.
80s.
Mm-hmm.
High-speed rail has existed in the rest of the world since the 60s.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
not newfangled go to the moon
No.
technology. Not
No.
that go to the moon technology is new either, but
Right.
uh, but and here we are. The the cost estimates from 19 from the mid 80s to the 2020s for any sort of high-speed rail project connecting big cities in California has increased by hundreds of times.
Mm-hmm.
So when we talk about clean air and clean water, we also talk about the regulations that prevent us from doing things that damage that, which get in the way of us doing things like high-speed rail. Why can the Chinese build high-speed rail? It's because they don't care who they kick out and what they do to the environment when they're doing it.
Hmm.
So it happens quickly. Infrastructure projects are very quick if we don't care which neighborhood we bulldoze when we put in an
We
interstate.
put it in exactly.
That being said, having we now have been captured by special interests so that big business can make money every single step of the way. There is
Mm-hmm.
no federalized building project that isn't outsourced to private business,
Yep.
whether it's an aircraft carrier or a state park.
Yep.
And so we have grown addicted to entrepreneurialism, which is another one of Tim Snyder's points that whenever we take a value and we make it the most important value at the expense of all others, we end up with no values at all.
I kind of feel like that's capitalism. I mean, that's what capitalism does, right? Um, it takes it monetizes everything so that the value of a thing is less than the money that it makes. Like, who cares? As long as it makes us money. That's capitalism, right? We could
Well,
have high speed rail if we weren't so dependent on the money that we make from oil and gas, right?
well, actually, it's worse than that. So the way we see capitalism working right now is that it's only some people who get to benefit from it, even when something is already making money. So the national park system, for example, right?
Mm-hmm.
The national park system makes a ton of money for the federal government.
Mm-hmm.
However, the money that it's recorded as making is not seen. It's like somebody who is a billionaire who is trying to cut costs doesn't actually look at both sides of the balance sheet. He's
Mm-hmm.
only looking at the expense side.
Okay.
So he sees on the expense side of the sheet, we spend a ton of money on national parks. He
Right.
doesn't see on the income side of the sheet
Right.
that it's pulling in 10 times that amount of revenue.
Right. Right.
So it turns out national parks are actually a great capitalist
They
project
are
because
good
we
revenue
like
stream.
nature. We
Yeah.
like nature that's preserved. We like nature where there are park rangers who know how to prevent forest fires and
Mm-hmm.
keep us out of the way of grizzly bears.
Mm-hmm.
I've been on a trail where I've seen a grizzly. That kind of
That's
adrenaline rush
that's pretty scary.
is not the part of is not like a central part of most people's vacation.
Right. That's not that's not what you want to see when you want to go hike and see the terrain around you, the view, the vista.
Right.
Hi.
When I go to Mount Baker National Wilderness, God willing, someday with my kids, I really don't want to be worried about them being mauled by a grizzly mama.
That's right.
So we we interact with nature for a long time in this country with an understanding that it needs we have to have a relationship, we need to invest in that relationship, and it turns out we can actually all benefit and even financially benefit for the country from it. But that type of complicated thinking is too hard for most people. So what we're facing is a crisis of complexity. Everybody wants a simple answer to complicated questions, and the fact of the matter is there is no such thing as a question of substance that isn't complicated.
Hmm.
So as soon as we take a hard line, we've cut out the nuance.
Mm. Yeah.
We can only talk about it this way. We can only talk about money spent, not money earned. We can only talk about uh, whether or not I have to pay extra for health for in taxes, not whether or not I'm paying too much in health insurance. All of these
Right.
things come down to black and whites. And you and I talked about this. When we reduce something to a black and white, which we do, we have to, because there's too much to decide on. The
Yeah, it's
complexity is
true.
overwhelming.
Yeah.
So we need to figure out how to warmly and compassionately enter into, boundless complexity and support each other in sifting through it with
Yeah.
and simplifying it enough so that we can make value-based decisions.
We have to have a soul. I keep saying I'll keep coming back to that. I mean,
I'm with you
having
100%.
a soul solves a lot of that. Um,
So what do
if
you
you
mean by that? What's the difference between showing up in a conversation with a soul or without a soul?
Well, when you show up to a conversation with a soul, you acknowledge that the person you're in a conversation with has a soul as well, and we both have souls, and we're both sentient beings, and the connotation that comes with that, right? The respect and the dignity that comes with that. When you have no soul, then the souls of other people don't matter. And so when you're into the conversation, you don't care. There's no what's your value? If you don't value life, if you don't value the other person's soul because you have none, then what's the value? What are we talking about? What are we what
And
are we, what are we coming together
if
on?
we don't show up to a conversation with a soul, we're not showing up at all.
We're not showing up at all.
We have already closed the door on the
Yeah.
conversation.
And everything becomes transactional and everything becomes about profit, right? But when you approach it with the soul, you understand where the true value is.
So
Our life, our health, this is the most valuable thing. It's our most valuable resource as a nation, as a species. And that should always be the bottom line for every conversation, politics, economics, all of it, medical, healthcare. It should all come down to how is this impacting the people?
so
That's yeah.
I'm going to push back a little bit. I think we can be transactional with soul too.
Of course we can. No,
And
yeah, of course we
and
can.
I think we need to figure out how to do that because
Well,
I
yeah.
think we need to reclaim the soul of capitalism.
Yes, that's all I'm saying. I'm saying capitalism is great. Socialism is great. All of it's fine if you have a soul, right? If you have a soul, if you have a conversation about capitalism with a soul, if you engage in free market enterprise with a soul, okay? And understand what's I'm going to give you this loan because I know that this loan is going to help you accumulate wealth. And when you have wealth, then the economy grows. And when the economy grows, the nation becomes great. That's a soul. No soul says, there's no way I'm going to friend you. So I'm going to hike it up. I'm going to blow it up. And you're never going to pay that back. And so that's not having a soul because we much rather cash out. Let's just cash out, as they say. Let's ball out. Ball out of control. Yeah, the market will crash. Yeah, it's gonna blow the market, the housing bubble is gonna pop, but I'm gonna get mine first. I'm going to pocket this money. I'm going to make as much money as I can. I'm going to buy a super yacht. And then when it does explode, I'll be in international waters. No soul.
And a total denial of the interconnection of everything,
Right.
because international waters are no escape.
No.
New Zealand is no escape.
Right.
Mars is no escape.
You can't get away from it, right? Can't get
So,
away from it.
um, our common humanity is demanding of us to explore, as I keep on saying, the bigger and bigger common ground that is has been retreated from by all of
Right.
those fortified left wing, right wing, extremist, illiberal tendencies
Yeah.
that are hiding behind walls of "I can't talk to you because you don't say the right thing" stuff.
Right. We've lost our
So,
soul.
so our invitation to everyone
Oh yeah. I'm
is
wrapping
to
it up.
continue coming to the table. We'll keep setting the table. We'll keep adding extra leaves to the table. We'll keep welcoming everyone to the table and being willing to sit next to people we've never sat next to before. We'll keep preserving the compassion and the welcome and the invitation of uncomfortable opinions at the table, the bringing of food that we've never tasted before. And if we can do this, if we can set this table better, uh, not sort of that idealized abstract Dr. King table where somehow or another in a country of millions of people, uh, every other person was a different hue, because
Mm,
that's not the proportional table. The proportional
no.
table looks a lot different than that.
Right.
But we're going to build the table, we're going to build the table as we arrive at it, and we're going to
Right.
continue to maintain the soul
Hmm.
of that common ground. And if you want to join us, we invite you to do so. We have our next conversation for everybody on Zoom and live and in person is this coming Tuesday, which is March 18th. At the Buffalo History Museum at 5:30 p.m. It's also live on Zoom and on Facebook, so you can find all those links at opendoorjudaism.org. Uh, if you want to join this conversation, we invite those of you who are material supporters of Open Door Judaism and Accomplices for Justice to make a donation or join on Patreon. We don't care. Give us something and you get to join this conversation. We are so thrilled and appreciative of you until we come up with a more elite, exclusive. That's the only barrier to entry. Uh, we are so grateful to those of you who have already, come to the table and supported us. And we look forward to figuring out, especially in our On Freedom conversations, what comes next. We're going to do our best to be here at 12:30 on Thursdays most of the time. And for half an hour, if you have a topic that you want us to talk about, send it to us.
Yep.
In the meantime, we're going to say thank you, all of you, for tuning in. If you've found us on YouTube or on the podcast, we'll be putting it out on Substack as well. Let us know how you want to see, hear, or interact with us, and come and join us and build that common ground together. Thank you, Pastor Hughes.
Thank you.
I'm going to stop the live stream and stop the recording. There we go.